Welcome to Marketing Today. I'm your host, Alan Hart, managing partner of Atomic, combining brand science and creative fire. Today on the show, I've got Bridget Russo, CMO of Shinola. Bridget was recently named 2016 Brand Genius by Adweek. Under her leadership, Shinola has positioned itself not only a must-have brand for consumers who value American craftsmanship, but also as an engine for economic revitalization. From its built-in Detroit tagline to its video ads, Shinola has perfected a unique brand based on storytelling and local pride. The company's grown from 20 million in 2013 to just over 100 million in the last year. It's also racking up powerful fans. Bill Clinton wore the Shinola watch at this summer's Democratic National Convention. Well, Bridget, welcome to the show. Please
Thank
share.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Share a little bit about yourself. I know you're at Shinola, you're the CMO, but tell me and the listeners what Shinola is. It's a great company from what I can tell, and give me a little bit more detail on what the CMO role is there.
Sure. Well, first off, Shinola really is a modern American design brand whose mission is to create jobs in America. So we started with a watch, something that hasn't really been made in the US in over 40 years, and built a watch factory in Detroit. I moved here actually from New York. I come from more of a fashion background and started in PR and then transitioned into marketing sort of halfway through my career.
So, Bridget, your background coming into the CMO is a little different than normal. Can you kind of give me a recap of where you got started and then how you made it to Shinola?
Sure. I actually started thinking that I was going to be a journalist. I went to school, NYU, for journalism and graduated with a journalism degree. And quickly, what happens for any of those who have sort of followed the same path, you end up in advertising or PR. I ended up in PR. I was very lucky. It was right at the moment when social media was hitting. I started on the agency side, worked my way up, went in-house to Diesel Denim brand as a PR director, and got more involved with presence marketing. So that's when the big mobile marketing craze was happening. And social media started to creep in. And so advertising started to not work like it used to anymore. And it was an opportunity because I do very much so feel that social is a function of PR. That sensibility, that two-way street conversation was how I was trained. We in PR, you don't buy your way in, right? You have to sort of have that conversation, that negotiation, whether it be with a journalist or with the consumer. So I think that sensibility helped me transition from my PR background into marketing, where I eventually went in-house to Eden, which is a clothing brand started by Bono and his wife, Ali Hewson, to build trade in Africa. And that was very much so. The whole sort of concept was built on this storytelling from literally the seed to the shelf. So it was kind of, a perfect entry ground for me to then come to Shinola, again, with a focus on the supply chain, but in this case now based in Detroit. We do get some of our parts from overseas, but again, it is built here and it's building a community and a workforce here in Detroit for jobs that are desperately needed.
Awesome. I'm really glad I asked you that question.
I got lucky. I mean, what can I say? I got real
Yeah,
lucky, but I worked real hard.
no, I know, but it's funny. So I've got a sweet spot in my heart. My wife is a journalist by background as well. It quickly made the transition, like yourself, to PR. She stayed in PR, but it's a skill set that I think is underutilized in marketing today. And to your point, you can't buy your way in. You have to literally earn your way
Right.
in.
That's why it's
So
called earned media.
exactly. So congrats on being named to a 2016 Brand Genius by Adweek. What does being called a genius mean to you?
Well, certainly it's not just to me. I think from the very beginning, Shinola has been a collaborative effort, starting with the city of Detroit and certainly the people who built this company and the brainchild of our founder, Tom. So I think it's a collective award, if you will, that really belongs to the people who are building these watches and making these amazing products. As far as what it means to us, I think it's really meaningful for Detroit, a city that's known for cars, to enter into the market with a new luxury good, that being a watch. I think it's really meaningful for the city, and it's certainly meaningful for the people who work here and who are building those watches every day.
So the company has been on a tremendous growth spurt over the last 3 years, going from 20 million in revenue to 100 or over 100 million in revenue. Can you help us understand how'd that happen? And really, what was marketing's role as well as helping to drive that growth?
I do believe it was the right product at the right place at the right time. I don't think any of us could have predicted how quickly the brand would catch on, but we were certainly excited from the first launch back in March of 2013. We launched our first product, our first watch called the Runwell, and it launched online before anyone had actually even seen the watch. In fact, we hadn't even made the watch just yet. And in 8 days, the watch sold out. And that was before anyone would actually receive it for 3 to 4 months. So that was really the beginning of the spark. We knew that people in Detroit certainly were supportive of the brand, and in the Michigan area. We had no idea what the response would be in the US and even overseas, where we opened a store in London a few years ago. But I think what people can relate to is that Detroit, apart from being a great American city that really helped build the fabric of who we are today, but it's also a city of hope. It's sort of not its heyday anymore, or when it used to be over 1 million people and now we're a population of 700,000. So to think that a great American city like Detroit can get back on its feet and reinvent itself is something that people can relate to, whether they're in New York, LA, London, or Minneapolis for that matter.
So what do you see for Shinola evolving over the coming years? Where do you think the company is headed?
That's a good question. I think for us, we're constantly breaking new ground, creating and getting into new categories. So we started with watches, leather goods, bicycles, journals. We'll be launching audio with a turntable this November. So I think really kind of taking a different look at what American luxury means and redefining that. Meaning we feel is the new luxury. It's not about logos and labels, but it's really about products with purpose and products that were made with thought and care. And certainly products that are authentic and have great stories to tell.
That's great. I mean, one of the big components of your story is a focus on economic development and what you're doing in Detroit, for that matter. What do you think marketers can learn from your focus on that could be adopted elsewhere?
We've learned and we've always felt that place mattered. So for us, our home is Detroit. And I think what people don't realize is that story of provenance, no matter where you're from, it's something that people can relate to and buy into. It adds depth to a brand, but it has to be real. If I just sat here in a marketing office with a little storefront and we were, putting out the ads that we do, it wouldn't be real and this brand wouldn't be successful. So, it's really about finding what that true authentic story is and showing that it has greater impact beyond just selling products.
Do you think it only works for growing brands like yours, or could a large company, say a Walmart, do it as well?
It's certainly a lot easier when you start with that purpose. It's a little more difficult when you try and back into it. But I think, again, you need to think about whether you're a big company, mid-sized company, what's at the core of what that brand was, why was it started? What does it stand for? What does it mean to people? And then see how you can expand on that connection, whatever it may be. In our case, it's a place. I think you have to start there, but certainly it's hard for me to think what a Walmart could do that is similar to Shinola, but I'm sure they can find something in their story.
Banks also talk about, their focus on community development, whether it's giving loans or just philanthropy back in the communities that they touch. Do you think there's an opportunity for somebody like that really has a direct impact on financing or availability of funds?
Yeah, I mean, that's an important piece of the puzzle. And if it's real and authentic and there isn't, sort of funny business going on the flip side, then absolutely there's an opportunity there. Because if you go into these markets, it's a great place for young entrepreneurs to come into town, but ultimately they do need funding. And whether that comes from a private or public source, if a bank can really, be that catalyst, absolutely, why not?
One of the things that caught my eye about Shinola is the storytelling that you do about the craftsmanship, about where you come from, that sense of place, like you talked about, and just wrapping that all in an American luxury story. What tips or advice would you have for other marketers wanting to become better storytellers?
I think you definitely, need to find what is your singular message that you want to get out there and then carry that across all your different touch points and make sure that that story is being told in some way, shape, or form across all channels. That every piece of marketing from a press release to a company brochure is treated with the same care and voice and sensibility. I've never worked for a company where literally every single word is scrutinized, a lot of stuff that the consumer doesn't even see. So that consistency of messaging is important. And also, and it's something that we're going to be challenged with very soon, as we grow these new categories, we can't forget about the historical categories because watches is still opportunity for growth, leather goods, et cetera. So it's about how you find that balance and what's the unifying message that ties them all together.
Great tips. I'm starting to call this section the couch and the crystal ball section. So stepping back and thinking about you as a marketer, you as an individual, what fuels you? What drives you?
That's a very good question. I definitely like the idea of being part of the beginning of something, being on the ground floor, in this case of Shinola, of a city like Detroit that's, rebuilding. That's something that personally interests me. To be able to work with such amazingly talented people, to have such close proximity to the people who are working on product, not just from design, but are actually building watches and leather goods right here. It's a unique opportunity, and I think that excitement and also that pressure that you have, when something's new, some folks know us and a lot of people don't, so there's a constant pressure. And I certainly don't have the budgets that, let's say, a more mature brand, certainly not within the watch category or fashion category for that matter, would have. So maybe I thrive on the pressure.
Now, you made that trip from New York to Detroit. I can only imagine you had to at least scratch your head once. Do I really want to do this?
It didn't really hit me until I was sitting in an empty apartment as I was waiting a week for my furniture. And it was the middle of January in Detroit that I thought, is this a good idea? But honestly, that was, soon after I've made fantastic friends. There's no way that I could be marketing this brand anywhere but in Detroit. Sitting in an office in New York just didn't make a ton of sense. No regrets. You don't know if you never try, right? So you got to take a leap. New York isn't going anywhere, so I can always go back. But I'm very happy where I am.
Great. Well, what brands or companies do you think people should take notice of? Usually I find marketers like yourself are students of the business.
I mean, there's definitely brands out there I admire. I think Tesla is a really interesting brand. Of course, Apple. I think every marketer would say that. Brands that are really taking a different approach and shaking up an industry. I would say those two are the primary ones, and then Virgin, just for the sheer nature of the diversity and the tenacity that that brand has.
Yeah, there's probably lessons there too as you expand your categories. I mean, the number of categories that Virgin is in is endless, it seems. So,
It's impressive, yes. Yeah, I mean, and sometimes you do something and it works out, and sometimes you try something out and it doesn't. So it's just about managing the risk taking, and if one thing does work out, there's a huge return. Some may argue that building our factory and our headquarters here in Detroit was a risk, but a risk we were willing to take. And of course, Detroit has, it's not what we've done for Detroit, it's really what Detroit has done for us. And continuing to be humbled by that and hoping to return the favor and doing as much as we can to shine a positive light on the city.
that's awesome. Last question. What do you predict for the future of marketing?
Oh my.
Big one, big one.
uh, I think more and more it will be in the hands of the people. I maybe it's because I come from more of a PR background that I think that way, but I think the sort of big marketing talking at people, but more so of a collaborative effort with the consumer and with the brand. And hopefully, there's a lot of talk, certainly in the manufacturing, coming back, but coming back in different ways. There's a need for small batch manufacturing. So I would hope that it's not just about the brands that can spend the most money, but the ones that can make the best connections with consumers. And sometimes that might be with, smaller groups, but that there's more opportunity for a diverse group of brands to connect with consumers versus just, the big guys. The big guys aren't going anywhere, but just like to see a little bit more of a level playing field. That's probably more of a utopia dream state, but one can dream.
That's right. That's right.
I sound like Bernie Sanders.
You do a little bit. You do. Well, Bridget, thank you for coming on the show today. I'm sure marketers all around the country and hopefully the world will get some takeaways out of what you had to say today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.